Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all tuning in to this poetry reading and panel discussion, Reimagining Lyric Performance. My name is Azad Ashim Sharma. I'm the director of the 87 Press, and it's a great pleasure to introduce this talk. This event is brought to you by 1455 Literary Festival and the 87 Press, a South Asian, neurodiverse, non-binary led small publisher based in South London. I'd especially like to thank Sean Murphy and Dr. Stephen Sheeha for bringing us all together for this talk. And thank you to all those tuning in and watching. I'll introduce our chair, Siddhartha Lokanandi, and our poets, Calliope Michail, Addis, and Karenjit Sandhu, and hand you over to them for the duration of this talk. Siddhartha Lokanandi is a bookseller in Berlin who initiated and co-runs a space in Berlin called Hopscotch that centers narratives and discourses from the margins of the globe. Calliope Michail is a London-based poet and translator born in Athens, Greece. She is the author of the poetry chapbook Along Mosaic Roads, published by us at the 87 Press in 2018, a leaflet of watercolor erasure poetry, The Nature of the Physical World, Word, 2019, which was published by Penteract Press, with more poems from the project included in the anthology Science Poems 2020. She has been performing collaborative work with other poets at the European Poetry Festival and Camarade series, whilst more of poetry work can be found in Snowlit Review, Datableed, Paminar Press, The Hive, Babel Notice Board, Lumen, and Prototype. Kat Addis's first poetry book is Space Parsley, which was published by the 87 Press in 2021. She's published some other poems in journals, including the Chicago Review, Black Box Manifold, Fatberg, and Poetry magazine. She experiments with translation, song, performance, film, and costume design in various combinations. Karenjit Sandhu is a poet, artist, and teacher. Her debut poetry collection, titled Young Girls, was published by the 87 Press in 2021. Her second collection, Poetic Fragments from the Irritating Archive, is now available at Guillemot Press 2022. Her poems appear in Judith, Women Making Visual Poetry, Tim Glassett, 2021, Writing Utopia, Hester Glock, 2020, and Nemesis, HVTN, 2019. Her performance work has led to collaborations with the Institute of Contemporary Arts, Flat Time House, Camden People's Theatre, as well as the Arnolfini, Bristol, and Galerie Eric Dupont in Paris. I will now invite Callie to show us her performance.
The world has become a great nerve. Enamel coating, erodes, exposed, emergency. We are deciduous teeth in the womb. Resist the vertigo of the void, so nebulously defined. It doesn't matter, it doesn't need a place. Deprived of body is no place. It's something you wanted to say, but there was an ice cube in your throat, cauterizing the walls of your pharynx, and how it just won't thaw. Gulp and wrench, push hypotheticals around your plate, the regret without the salad. The pharynx is where confusion lies, all crossroads of limbic feud. Do I swallow? Do I inhale? Cyclical expenditure, casting and expelling, bursts of every way, even when you dream, to not be aware. A luxury. Muscles you do not have to know the limit of. Joints that never announce their claustrophobia. The ice cube lodged, the violence of inertia. Every universal is bound to failure. Exhume your language from the void, this obsession with origins, this fixation on full stop. Lick the margins. Floss, gloss, fold into the humus, flirt with the vertiginous view, subcutaneous tug of thought, tethered. Awkwardly, the soma holds all. Aquifer, abscess, in all directions, the nerve, tender, throbs, anarchic. The world has become a great nerve.
A place deprived of body is no place.
The pharynx is where confusion lies.
All crossroads, a limbic fugue.
Do I swallow? Do I inhale?
Casting and expelling,
Bursts of every wave.
muscles you do not have to know the limits of.
Joints that never announced. The violence of inertia.
Exhume your language.
Lick the margins.
The soma
Holds all.
Thank you, Callie. Kat, please take it away.
I am relieved. A slapping beat refreshes me. I was born on the same day that they saw Venus bring her fish to fry. A new breath of a mini mouth organ and no containment for my mind. Mother River runs me to the sea. The necks of olives getting sweet. I bang dextrose to the drum and squiggles of sun on my bare bum. My fat baby mer personality is totally disburdened of reality, unmoored. Want it to last. I had one too many ice creams too fast. Nurse? Bounce me back to reality. Put on my silky socks. Tomorrow I shit bomb the alarm clock. New pleasure of the cunning human in herself, that something she has found to do is to love a thing new, some soft colt ham of collected sighs. I am one of those whom weeping afflicts, it's true, and never half as good as when I outwit myself with tears, when impregnated. The doctor of health does a tour de forceps in the heart of the labour, a little head that tempts him into bad behaviour, reasoning from the known to the unknown. But that's not what it is that touches me to groan, to feel if she does something inside, I run back and re-enter by the wide trapdoor in the jaw of my mind, and the unmanned heart is punished delicately by the head. That through the streets of my love they would me lead. Take a branch and bend it round. Put it on your head. Now you are crowned. This crowning unites us, even we who poetry. Put it on your head. Be a friend to your divas, nursing injuries from long ago, taking inventories of the bitter olive crop. Now you are crowned. This crowning, you'll discover you're the foundling princess, loved and owned, exchanged for a pastoral amethyst. Unite us, even we who in poetry seek calmer springs of opiates, replenished, tail in mouth. From time to time, as the geese fly north, you and the other will slide between Rousey and Costa. As much as each of them is less beautiful than you, so much the more does my tidal wave crest. From him comes the smooth spirit that scouts you to the sky for every sexual feeling. Yes, but I fly already, lifted by my hopes. I bless the place, the time, and the hour. I am always doing that. I'm as innocent as a little boy needing bread and golden slippers. I bend my double jointed arm, wondering have I thanked God enough for the tight back and busy head of the upright bird who can perch on a point. From him comes the smooth spirit that scouts you to the sky for every sexual feeling. Yes, but I fly already, lifted by my hopes. From him, from the way he gets confused into soft grass, from his sudden picky feet and the triangles he knows in the sky, small flapping tangerine bee. From him comes the smooth spirit scout into the sun for every sexual feeling. Yes, but I fly already, lifted by my home. I'm not an animal, but a guest of the earth. Where I come from, they hate the sun. Time for work. How much is a day? Our sky blazes up your stars. We are desert empires. It's not good to hide in the wood. Better to have a position in relation to the dawn. And I, the beautiful dawn. She's gone. And there's a shadow inside the earth. It's waking up the sleepy animals in the wood. It's now or never. Lead with the sun. When I come telling tales about the stars, the dog is the guardian of the day. The evening scratches out the clear day. Our darkness, others make the dawn. I look thinking, these simple stars that have made me aware of the sensual earth. Soft on my skin, I can feel the sun. That puts me into the landscape, a man nourished by a wood. I don't think she ever comes through the wood, but she does poison, whether by night or by day. I like this one. The dog is the guardian of the sun. I keep busy so I'm not tired at the sounds of dawn. It would be so great to find her body on earth. Oh, my farm. I come from the stars, torn from you, my bright stars, down into the cloying wood, leaving the body a cover-up trite as earth. You'd see marks up there one day. Can recover, but here the dawn can make me rich as the rising sun. If only I was not alone at the sinking of the sun, and no one could see us but the stars, my bright stars. I dream of one night for us all, and it would never be dawn, and she wouldn't transform in the green wood to escape me like what she did on the day that what they call Apollo chased her into earth. Even I will be buried in dry flakes of wood, and the day will insult me with a rot of tiny stars, but trust me, hurl the dawn into the sun.
I dream of one night for us all, and it would be never done. And she wouldn't transform in the green wood to escape me by what they call the Apollo chased her into earth. Even I will be buried in dry flakes of And the day, and the day, and the day, and the day will insult me with a rod of tiny thorns. But trust, but trust, but trust, but trust me. And when I
Thank you very much, Kat. Wow, that was great. Thank you. Thank you both. Karenjit, take it away.
Okay, I'm going to read from or perform from two of my collections. So I'll be performing from Young Girls and then poetic fragments from the Irritating Archive. Nude. I am leaning towards you, coming closer to see the tilt of nude yours. As I lean fast, leaning forwards, closer, still, breath, mine reaches you, lean vertebra, inverse weight, back, heels, front, toes, lie flat, push, the lean, the slant, nude, yours, slight, push. Spinal flexion, torso, yours, supine grip, release, moving further, forwards, clockwise. Away and lengthen, lean, stretch, sacral spine, yours, flattening out, ribs, expand, drawing nude lines, earlobe, mine, balance, hip bone, upper thoracic, tilted alignment grows. Away, further, stretching scapula, strong, stretch, sketch, central axis, mine, growing apart, discs compress. Tautening, collateral ligaments hover, unlocking, facet joints, lumbar spine lifts. Crown, yours, spine, mine. Here to burn letters. 27th of February. Dear red hot plaza on a plinth where rests a tower made from stacked wooden crates of brown birch. 15 feet high tower burns inside each crate, letters blazing, handwritten notes, typewritten words, burning printed communication at light, burning hole punch, burning folded parchment plain, burning scented, burning cuddy and handmade, burning scorched edges, crinkled flakes, burning down hemp wrapping shards, burning cotton fabric printed, burning recycled silk, singed orange, burning bonded matte coated watermark, burning blackened charred gloss, rag tissue, crisp cotton husk linen, burning flax, burning corn, burning mulberry, burning seed, burning continuous higher entry for the OED, a burning letter written communication addressed to someone of a fiery temperament. Fiery temperaments are hard to come by. Fiery temperaments, raging organization or another flaming body sent by burning post of messenger, burning ignited letters, burning yours truly, Marie Elsie, burning tales of the burning summer of 97, signed Malcolm, burning magazine cutouts with, burning love from Edith, burning Polaroids thinking of future meal, burning stickers, burn colours, sending burning kisses with hugs, Carl XX. Inside the sugar factory, so many gaps about why I was there, why this factory, why sugar. Many gaps like this one. I was briefly distracted by the dotted trees and all the... I looked out of the factory's high windows and thought, for miles and miles, clusters of thatch roof mud huts with, and the pink roses pressed up against, and a white wall. I listened to the voices. The sounds were sonorous and lifting into, and I'm not sure why, but I thought, but the factory sirens then began to wail just in time for, I saw moving. I do remember thinking, but I forgot and I couldn't. A sprawling, I decided to, in the grass, a sprawling, I was holding on to, and then forwards I went. And I remember thinking, or not. It was vast, but also, I think, a palatial estate or something else perhaps. Why was I this factory? Sugar. Welcome to the irritating archive. In the event of an emergency, leave by the nearest exit. Please wear the gloves, apron, and hat provided. Item 1, apron. Item 2, hat. Item 3, glove. Item 4, visitor's book. Unhappy moo. Separating from mother was counterproductive. A burden overstretching the boundaries of regret. Hives popped up in the morning rush, hives of polarized plants in an hour of clash. Clash hour is the hour of shouldering the burden which pops the rash on the skin of cows, unhappily mooing in bathtubs of loss. Ooh, moo, ooh, emergency swelling lips and suspicious looks from the passers-by. Unhappy, on board this train. Its roof leaks nasal congestion and milk. Ooh, moo, ooh, nu goblins. Moos, open, tunes, ooh, through, scratch with cries, ooh, disobedience. And waves, ooh, pinion, plug into and to body network. This network is mothers. These tactics which drag and coof are the tactics of mother. Mother's milk is runny and itchy sample size. The train beats through emergencies, ooh, wheezing and assembling ecology, all in the outside. Outside faces civilly press their skin against a row of glass window panes, lacking tools to run, instead arrested, regretted, affected. Item 4, the archivist's notes. Emotions are described as strong feelings or instinctive feelings. They consist of primary and background emotions. In relation to the former, there are 6 so-called primary emotions. We have happiness, we have sadness, fear, anger, surprise, or disgust. Irritation is labeled as a background emotion alongside the following. We have jealousy, calm, and guilt. This further highlights the distinction between anger, a primary emotion, and irritation, a background emotion, which reinforces their position on opposite ends of the scale. Lost souls. A body is floating in the Kallang River. There is a tent in the distance. It is Sunday afternoon, and on Sundays, the unclassified neighbours from across the street head towards the water. They eat game and fowl and discard the bones in Nimishillen Creek. The young release princess balloons which float above the inlet. The cold light of candles are resting on the water. The body is naked. There is a sign which reads, "Prevent accidents." The body is mystical. Its herbaceous outline blooms with lush plastic fruits. It lies underneath the safe spot, "Prevent accidents." The body floats into an emphatic pose which looks like "Prevent accidents." The railroad tracks have been classified and form the backdrop to "Prevent accidents." Sounds can be heard off the Mexican coast, and the body joins an auditory system of floating acoustic monitors, "Prevent the spatial depth, prevent of the wood scrapyard, curtain of tarpaulin, in the underground, in the elan mind, in a duffel bag along an equestrian trail to Sid pulled from the canal, see it vanishes and is later identified beside see the volcano at Lake Atalan or Banja Luka, see the body is 30 miles from see but the lights in the arcades, accidents, spatial depth, clings to the tomb of theatricality, dizzying with profound acceleration, on dark split corpse, on the LA hiking trail, lined with stuffed animals, this Wednesday night, illegal fishing nets, the amplified figures with a ghostly pallor, the body is floating in the Rappahannock River and is buoyed up in the boat ramp which crosses Little Falls. In the distance, there is a tent overlooking the mountain, exhumed in a mortology autopsy of dolphin-like clicks, the abbot's abandoned city, decomposing miracles which refloat, and disappear, canals and showtimes, the body is hit, the creek east of Soper, Wellington County, and Donegal, for shortening the body from near extinction to San Marco, blows the floats here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karenjit. Thanks to all three of you. Having been recovering from COVID this week, it brought me such happiness to see those performances. So thank you again, and I'm sure all the viewers at home and across the world will have enjoyed them. Siddhartha, please enter the fray, and let's see how this discussion is going to open itself.
I think it's a really great development for somebody who's hosted a few readings to hear and see these readings, because there is so much embodiment here. I was not prepared for this. And I must say, I'm really I wish we could go on, because this is a kind of a triumvirate that I think is best served by talking amongst themselves. Someone like me, who's not a creator and who took sheer delight in just absorbing these performances and was making some other kind of notes separate from the ones that I made when I went through these books, because these books do only partial justice to the vibrancy and the vivaciousness of the poets. Who says poets can read just in one sonorous tone or one sonority? This is beautiful to experience, quite frankly. And I would just say, and then maybe I will leave it to the participants to see if they want to talk among themselves, because there are three different things going on, simply because they're three different creators. But I would ask a leading question, maybe, and then maybe I will see if Calliope, Karenjit, and Kat can talk about this, because it's also something maybe that I don't know if they've talked about this among themselves. There is a lot of embodiment here. There is an unusually large amount of authorly, even ghostly signifiers and presences here, which seems appropriate for these times. where we are having trouble living in our own bodies, living with our own sounds. My body has started making sounds I never heard from my own body since I got COVID twice, which is kind of a hazard of being a bookseller, coming into daily contact with a lot of people. And so I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that presence of embodiment and the musicality of it, of course, because in the week when one of our probably presiding deities, Kate Bush, ran up the hill to the top of the Pops, I mean, there is something here, something of her liminal presence, if not active presence, in some of these, because you are British poets. I mean that is also to be recognized, in that there is a very strong tradition of lyrical precursors, along with some presence. I mean, forgive me if I'm being very broad in this, but maybe we can just talk about embodiment and the voice, especially the way you channel your voice through your bodies and present it, because we all got to see some in Calliope's in terms of a stage performance with Scott, Cats with really, a pop video, a poetry video, poem pop video. And Karenjit could have really, we just needed a certain kind of green screen with the Swiss hills that populate certain Hindi films and so on. And I'll stop here. Anybody can start.
I'm gonna start and deflect but I thought I should say, yeah, I'm so interested also in, I just enjoyed those two performances so much, and I also feel really buzzing and full of like connections and things, and sound, embodiment and sound felt like incredibly powerful in both of your performances. I felt, especially, it was like, because Calliope, in yours, I loved how you taught us the movement happened, and then the language came, and then the language taught us how to read the movement that had already happened, and then you did the movement again. So there was this like amazing thing, and then Karenjit, the way that you play with sound is just, I can't even understand how you can do it. It's so good. And it looks, and it's really, and it takes, especially with the certain sounds like ooh in that poem, where every O is, that becomes that sound.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, every O is exaggerated to mimic the mooing cow, the sound of the mooing cow. But that's something I wanted to say to both of you, actually, is how the voice is then used when you're moving. I mean, that was incredible, Kat, to hear the singing voice, the musicality of the voice, coupled with the costume and your movements. And Callie, yours as well, where you're moving across the stage and also voicing and articulating the words, but sometimes you're holding back, and Scott is the mover and you're the still body. So yeah, sorry, Kat, I hijacked that a bit.
No.
It was, yeah, sorry.
No, I was only going to say, I also wanted to clarify for my part with the sound, that it's not all my voice. I feel I need to be really clear, and I want to give credit to the other voices at the beginning who are in the songs because the first song is me and my sister singing together, and my partner Joe is doing the synthesizers, and then the second song is a song written by my friends Alex Cohen and Edward Lyle Barton. So that's two people whose voices I kind of took their voices, and so that's also, and that's very that I don't know if either of you feel that there's an element of that. For me, it's a lot about that it's not my voice necessarily, and it's the costume is a lot about because the poems are written in this relationship with Petrarch, the 14th century Italian poet, and I translated those poems, and that's how I wrote my own poems. Obviously, I've dressed up as one, maybe not obviously. My costume is a Petrarch costume, based on those funny pictures of Petrarch with the red hood and everything, and so that's also distancing. I guess it's ghostly, but then the music is another kind of, in a way, it is embodiment, but it's also weirdly introducing other people and other voices into my embodiment. And I tried to lip sync because it seems appropriate to a translation to be lip syncing, but also it became really complicated as I was doing it, because I realized that I had edited the poem since Alex and Ed made the song. So I was like, what are you singing? That's not what, oh no. I couldn't remember the words. But yes, I guess just, what do you two have the sense of always being yourself in the moment of performance, or are there other people like ghosts and stuff?
I feel simultaneously embodied and disembodied when performing. For the young girls collection, I'm taking on the voice and the words of Amrita Shergill. So I'm trying to imagine what she might say, but yet, as I was writing that, it was natural that her letters and her language was fusing with my own memories and experiences of my own childhood. So there's this blurring that's going on. So when I'm performing those poems, yes, they are partly me, very consciously trying to orchestrate them and choreograph them, but they're also her words, and me trying to channel her. And similarly with the archivist, I'm playing the part of what I imagine to be quite an eccentric archivist who's got this irritating collection of very unusual paper-based objects. So I'm conscious that I'm constructing her. I feel very conscious of my performance and my body in that performance and what it's doing with the hat and the apron, for example. And then there's various other objects that come in different performances. But at the same time, I'm trying to distance myself and embody her, and how she might perform. So yes, so that was a really great question at the start about the body and being embodied, but also disembodied. And it made me think, actually, what you've just said, Kat, a question that I have for both of you about collaboration. And when you're collaborating with other bodies, what negotiations you have to make as you and the other body or other bodies come together. I mean, I was just, Callie, working with Scott there, and I was just transfixed thinking, gosh, the rehearsal time that must have gone into those movements and the choreography of timing it so seamlessly. So I was really curious about that. And Kat, with yours as well, you've told us of all these co-collaborators that have worked on the musicality of it, for example. What happens when they are no longer present, but what they have made is still there?
Just want to say I loved both your performances as well, and the voice work is really interesting to me as well, because I haven't actually played very much with voice work, so it's great to have both your performances. Yeah, the collaboration question and the persona question, I feel kind of ties together for me, because I've primarily done performances in collaboration, so that's inevitably another person kind of synthesizing their persona, their personality, their interests and everything into what we're doing. So that's immediately an element of distance through that synthesis of sorts. So it's not necessarily a persona, but there is that element of something else happening, or like a diffusion or dilution of just myself, because it's in collaboration. So I find that element of collaboration very fun and generative, and different every time, because it really depends. And I love jumping off of what the other person has to provide or offer, or what their interests are as well, and their practices. So yeah, I find it quite fun and generative to be able to work with other people in the performance context.
I wanted to ask, oh, sorry. Well, okay. I wanted to just quickly ask Calliope, but what was the order of things in the coming together of that performance? Did the poem come first, or was that also, yeah, and then how did the movement come from the poem, or was it the other way around, or was it like a combination?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we hadn't actually met in person until that night, and we had basically talked about things that we were interested in, and Scott Thurston his practice is very much involved in dance and poetry, and we were talking about various ideas that interested us. We went back to like Dada or cabaret as well. We were going through this whole journey just chatting about things without having anything concrete to work off of. And then I was looking at the idea of madness in Artaud and kind of the body again, and expression. And we decided to like, okay, just pare it all down, just write something. And I wrote a piece. He then edited it out. So the smaller bits, the more condensed bit of the poem when we're moving, was his edit of what I wrote. And he choreographed the whole thing, and I learned it with him over Zoom. And then the longer bit of the poem of the whole poem that I'd written is him improvising at that moment to what I'm saying. So it was kind of a mixture of Zoom rehearsal time and improv on Scott's part. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, we can't
I think
hear
the mic, yeah.
Sorry. So many other possibilities, because Zoom rehearsals manifesting in an actual in-life performances might be the future, because I can quite see you stitching together your voices or your intentions and then making a performance, which I hope you will. It's really interesting because poetry seems to be the great equalizer in the sense that it is able to encompass so much now. And so much, what I consider what works as poetry in my bookshop baffles me sometimes, and it actually challenges me and even exhilarates me half the time, because more and more artists who do performance are now reading poetry, reading the great ones, and then the more contemporary ones like Anne Carson, who comes up a lot as a figure, as a kind of a woman person with a voice who has let them go. And of course, then there is C.A. Conrad, who also does this other kind of rituals and so on. So I was wondering if it might be useful for our listeners to also think a little bit about the precursors. We all have precursors. Like poetry builds on a great tradition. Katz does a little bit of work with Petrarch. Maybe we can start with Karenjit or Calliope, and we can talk about some of precursors and see if that is something that might interest some of our listeners to think about, because maybe they all read the same people, but do not know how it transmogrifies so gloriously into some of what we have seen today.
Yes, that's a great question, actually, thinking about where it's all started from, where the inspiration takes root. And for me, with the Irritating Archive, so much of it was thinking about how the poem looks on the page, and then how that will translate into performance. So I was reading poets, for example, that work with prose poem type structures on the page. So it took me back to the 20s, and I was looking at Gertrude Stein. And then also more recently thinking about the prose short stories of Lydia Davis. But then at the same time, I was looking at performance poets or performance artists from the 80s, Andrea Fraser, thinking a little bit earlier, Martha Rosler, and then also Joan Jonas. So I was trying to keep the writers and the performers in mind simultaneously as I was constructing that text, and trying to think about ways that I could perform it, hopefully in quite a multifaceted way as well, with the objects and the materials and then the printed text too. So yeah, it was quite, and there's many more I know that I have looked at but haven't come to mind yet, so I'll hold that thought for now.
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's very much, I came through poetry, not necessarily through performance, but it's very much contemporaries like yourselves who I see and kind of as form that kind of canon in my head of performance poetry and what it is today in London or in the UK more broadly. Yeah.
I think I feel, similar. That I actually feel really conscious of having of how many precursors there are for performance type stuff that I don't know about yet, that I'm so excited. You know, like some of the people that you mentioned, Karenjit, I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to find out more about them, because I think I've come into it from contemporaries, really inspiring people who I see right now, you two, and my friend Sophie Sater, who does a lot of performance work, with whom I've collaborated on costumes, and I think I learned a lot from that, or that opened up possibilities for me of this kind of freedom and playfulness, and in performance of poetry and of writing, and Holly Pester, who does such amazing stuff with sound and reading, and then also a bit and then also really old stuff, as it like because I'm into costume, I really enjoy watching the like extremely over the top massive budget things, like during lockdown the Met Opera was like streaming all of their operas, and I don't know much about opera, but I got really into these Italian, because also Petrarch, but I got into these Italian bel canto operas where like the objective seems to have been to write the most difficult possible thing for the singers to sing, so that singers would be like, what the hell, I can't sing this is impossible, and then they do sing it and it's just ridiculous, like it's so excessive, and it's so but it's so, and then they're wearing these amazing costumes, and it's so surreal, and I felt really inspired by that for some reason.
I agree with that. I think because the way we all work, it's so interdisciplinary as well, that you're not just looking to the work of other poets, but perhaps artists, musicians. You mentioned opera there. I often have to go away and read critical writing on theatre as well. So there's been like a lot of Brecht coming in, but at the same time, costume features quite a lot in my work, and I'm quite interested in how people stage their work. And Banu Kapil would be a great example of somebody who does that and does it really effectively on screen too. So yeah, it's interesting where we end up when we're starting to think about writing new work.
I think one of the things we agreed on was that with Azad was that I will talk to the minimum, and I don't have much to add to this, because I would like to leave it at a point where we all are happy about our exchanges,